You can start the real song now.
Okay. Paso a paso bajo el sol se reencarna la ilusión de viejos templos ya florecidos, tan alcance y tan lejos. Si firme marcha el soñador, el sueño sin dolor, es igual que el agua nunca bebida por un hombre sin valor. El que lucha nunca llega, el que llega no ha luchado. Bajo el fuego de la sierra jamás podrán vencer al soñador. El valiente no se perder. El soñador, el soñador, el valiente es ejercer. El soñador. Te calmáis, dice el capo, de los capos con temblor, las rodillas, tumbar su silla, lo inundan gran temor, pero firme marcha el soñador, en sueños sin dolor, es igual que el agua, sangre corriendo, derramando el camino. El que lucha nunca llega, el que llega no ha luchado. Bajo el fuego de la sierra jamás podrán vencer al soñador. El valiente no se perder. El soñador, el soñador, el valiente es ejercer. El soñador.
For all those of you out there rocking with Gabo from Fayuca, the Latino rock band, he's the lead singer. Bienvenidos todos. Qué bueno que están aquí con nosotros en este evento muy especial del voto latino. It's our time, es nuestro tiempo. Ahora nos toca, es nuestra ocasión. Yo soy Raúl Aguirre, bienvenidos todos. Claro que queremos que estén con nosotros a través de esta hora con muchos diferentes especiales invitados. And for today's music, Fayuca will be coming back. And you know what Fayuca is. If you don't, type it in and let us know if you got the right definition. And then Unidos and Chicanos por la Causa, Unidos Us, USA and Chicanos por la Causa are two of the most influential Latino advocacy organizations in the United States. Both organizations have a long history of working together to stand up for the Latino community in Arizona and across the nation. And for all of you across the nation, we send our best. Los saludamos. We have an exciting lineup for you today as we talk about the importance of this election and the issues facing Latinos in 2020. So we're going to start right now, kick off today's event with a discussion, a conversation about the importance of the Latino vote. And we have Janet Munguia, President and CEO of Unidos US and President of the Unidos US Action Fund. Joining her is David Adame, President and CEO of Chicanos por la Causa and Board Chairman of Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund. Así que vamos a pasarles a ellos. Tell us a little bit more about the importance of the Latino vote. We've been talking about it for years, and it's finally materializing across the nation like a wildfire. So, Janet and David, talk to us about the importance of it and where we're going now.
Well, sure. Gracias, Raúl. It's wonderful to be here and to be with David. We at Unidos US have been working with CPLC, Chicanos por la Causa, for many years since we started. So it's wonderful to see us come full circle yet again at such an important time. We know that for Arizona and the country, there's never been a more important election The stakes are so high for us. We've seen so many issues confronting our community, and most recently, the pandemic, COVID-19. It's had a devastating impact on Latinos across the country, and I think here in Arizona, we've seen that play out. So we have our health issues that are at stake, but we've also seen how this pandemic has affected our economy. And so we need to make sure that we're all registered voters, that we're educated voters, and that we vote in this election. The issues that are at stake for our community have never been higher in terms of their importance, and we need to weigh in, and we need to use our voice, but we need to use our vote, and this is the time.
Thank you, Janet. Great to have you here. It is always great to be with you. You know, this is our time. That's the theme of this it's an initiative that we're doing. And just to put it in perspective, we know it's our time because the population in Arizona, Latino population, is growing and growing fast. We know that 62% of all kindergarten kids are Latino. Fast forward 13 years, even more power. But we need to make sure that our community participates. The last thing I want to see again is any elected official, especially a past governor of Arizona, say, don't worry about them, they don't vote. We are going to vote, we're going to make an impact. During the 2016 election, the presidency for Arizona was won by less than 100,000 votes. There's over 1 million Latinos that can register to vote in Arizona. We need to make sure that we harness that, and if we can raise the percentage, get another 200,000 people to actually register and to vote, then we control the election. We're a big part of this community. We're an important part of the community for the future. You know, I saw a stat that in this pandemic, nationwide, we're about 18% of the population, but we were 36% of the essential workers. But yet, they're not being treated fairly. You look at the farm workers out in California, still having to work with not good PPE and having to inhale smoke and those types of things. We need to make sure that elected candidates are coming to us. We're going to participate, and we're going to continue to participate, and this initiative is going to show more that we're going to make the impact in this election, and they're going to be forced to have to come talk to us. No more of not coming to talk to us. I'm happy that elected officials are now making more investment in Spanish television to make sure that our Spanish-speaking community can understand the issues and understand where they stand for our community. That's where we need to be, and that's what this initiative is about. So I'm so happy to be partnering with Unidos US. We're an original affiliate of Unidos US, and together, logramos más.
And you know, one of the things that just happened is a judge extended the registration. So now you were supposed to stop registering yesterday, but in Arizona, they have extended it till the 23rd. So now we have even a bigger opportunity to get everyone out there across the nation and, of course, across Arizona to make this happen. Janet, when you think about the power of the Latino vote, you know, David just spoke about, you know, the big student population, K through 12, and not just in Arizona, but across the country. You know, the conversation of Latinas starting more businesses than anyone else, certainly in Arizona, but across the country. So we're beginning to leave a big footprint. Tell us more about what we can expect should we use the power of our vote. Al usar el voto, ¿qué podemos esperar del impacto que tenga en nuestras comunidades a través de la nación?
Nuestro voto es nuestro poder. Increasingly, what we have seen that when we grow our vote, we grow our power. And in that power is our ability to create the policies that we live with, whether it's at the state level or at the national level. And the policies that are most important to us impact our lives every day. Access to health care and health coverage. We need to make sure we have policies that are going to be put in place that deal with this pandemic for everyone, including essential workers and our Latino community who have been putting their lives on the line in those jobs that have been essential to keep the country going and to keep Arizona going right now. So we need access to policy changes like education and like jobs and the economy, policies that we know are going to matter as they impact our children and our families. So when we vote, we tell every elected official they are going to be accountable for the policies and the choices that they make. We have that power and we have to use it. And that now, that voter registration deadline you mentioned, Raul, has been extended here in Arizona by the federal courts. Our community has at least until October 23rd, but they shouldn't wait until October 23rd. Register to vote as soon as you can and make a plan to vote. If you register and can vote early, do it. If you have already registered, make a plan to vote. Will you vote by mail? Will you go in person on election day? If you go in person on election day, be prepared to stand in line or to make sure you're committed to see that process through. This is such an important election. Arizona will likely be the swing state that determines the outcome of the presidency. It could determine a change in who controls the state legislature, and there is a Senate race in play. Latinos and our vote as a cohort, as a group, will be the difference. We need to make sure we use that right we have to register and vote on election day and to vote in this election.
And how exciting that is. David, in particular, you know, Chicanos por la Causa has been at the forefront of education with 2 schools in the Tucson area, working with Nogales at the border, Yuma, and young people have been kind of the staple. They've been coming through the ranks of Chicanos por la Causa with mentorship, with education. Yet, I think young Latinos sometimes feel they're disenfranchised. What is your message to them to get out there and vote and follow up on what Janet just mentioned in terms of the impact and the footprint that we can be leaving behind and, of course, impacting the general election?
Well, what I would tell them is, this is our time, but this is their time. Chicanos por la Causa, 51 years ago, started by walking out of the Phoenix Union High School District here in Arizona. Why? Because we weren't getting the proper attention, investment, and opportunities that we deserved. We've come full circle. Our communities are struggling. Many of the poor districts where our community happens to live don't have access to Wi-Fi. We've seen national stories of our young children, our young students trying to go to Taco Bell to get access to Wi-Fi. That is unacceptable, and we need to fight together. And how do we fight? We fight by registering to vote, participating, and not only getting yourself to register to vote, but get somebody else to register to vote. I talked about how close the election with the last presidential election here in Arizona was. Could you imagine if every one of us just got one more person to do that? And that's where these young students come in. They're our future. Every 30 seconds, somebody in our community is turning 18. That's the stat I got. Blew me away. So that means we have the opportunity, but let's not fumble the ball. Let's take it across the goal line. Here in Arizona, there's been an extension to register, as Janet mentioned. Don't wait till the last minute. Let's take advantage of this opportunity, because this election could be that close again. It could be 100,000, but our community is there. We have the numbers. We just need to harness that, and that's where this young future Latinos in our community can make that big difference, and sí se puede.
And many people always ask, but why should we vote, Raul? Because, you know, maybe it doesn't matter, our vote doesn't matter, but it does matter. As a matter of fact, when 80 to 90,000 Latinos turn 18 every month, it really matters. I read somewhere great research that says if 18% of all the 18 to 25-year-old Latinos get out there and vote, you can decide that election. So that is very important. And it also goes hand in hand with the census. As you know, the census is wrapping up, and those two things impact our community greatly. When you think about also issues, many times people think that Latinos, their number one issue, for example, they always bring up immigration or bilingual education, some ethnic studies, which we have pioneered here in Arizona as well. But I think Latinos are very engaged in many, many areas. Janet, can you talk, and David, can you talk a little bit about those other issues that are very important to us?
Yeah, I think you're capturing it. David has made a reference to it. Look, if our children are having problems accessing in-home education because of the lack of broadband or Wi-Fi, those issues are on the ballot in this election. If you want to make sure you have access for your children or your family to early early childhood education centers, Head Start, preschool, that's on the ballot. The quality of the K through 12 and access to post-secondary education to colleges and university, that's on the ballot. If you're worried about housing and whether you're going to have access to quality housing and be able to pay the rent, that's on the ballot. All of these different elected officials take positions on issues that impact our communities every day. When we can show them that we will hold them accountable because we vote, we are dictating the future for ourselves, for our families, and for our community, and for this state and the country. We need to make sure we're fully empowered to do that by voting. We empower ourselves. And yes, we need those young people who've turned 18, who are now eligible to vote, to vote. 1 million of our young Latinos and Latinas across this country turn 18 every year, and that's going to be true for the next 20 years. Imagine, as David and Raul has said, if we harness that ability, if you as young people understand that you have a voice and that your vote can be the strongest way that you use your voice, in many instances this election day, you'll make the difference. So we as a Latino community need to make sure that we are fully leveraging our power, and we can do that by voting. Register to vote here in Arizona up until October 23rd. Do it as soon as you can, but make sure you make a plan to vote. Bring others who are registered and eligible to vote with you, and vote, because when we do, we are declaring that we care about the future of our family, our community, and this country.
Thank you, Janet. One of the things that just breaks my heart, right? This is something bigger than all of us as individuals. This is about our extended familias. Every day, Chicanos por la Causa is helping somebody. We served 620,000 people last year alone in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, and now California. And it breaks my heart when we get calls that people that don't have health care or don't have access to health care. Or I get calls that, my child can't participate in school because they don't have a laptop. Or somebody can't find a job to take care of their family. Our community is a hard-working community. We're not looking for a handout. We're hard workers. We're part of the backbone of this country. We're definitely a big part of the future of this country. As our community goes, this country is going to go. Whether it's serving in our military, or it's building the infrastructure of this country, or educating our future workforce. This is how critical this election, more than ever, with our community. I was talking to folks back in the movement in the late 60s, the Chicano movement. And the biggest advice they gave me is, David, it's unfortunate that some of our issues have come full circle. But look at the advantage you have now. Back then, we were maybe single digits population. Today, we're in the Southwest, where Chicanos por la Causa works, we're at least 30% in every one of the markets, if not more. We have this unique, great opportunity, but it's up to each and every one of us to take responsibility, do their part, and do more than their part. Go out and find other people, because this is our future. It's in our hands. It's in our control. It's our time, and it's from the ancianos in our community to the jovencitos. We're all part of it. Let's teach our jovencitos that they need to participate early. Get them out there, working, walking, being on telephone banks to call people, because it's important. It's that important. I don't want to keep hearing about my community and immigrant children being mistreated or molested. Come on. We need to fight for our community. Tenemos que luchar por nuestra comunidad, y juntos podemos hacerlo. Gracias, Raúl.
Our time is now. Thank you very much, Janet, and thank you, David, for this great conversation. And it's not about just cheerleading. I mean, these two people right here, these two leaders from two great organizations, they walk the talk. Every day they're out there mobilizing our communities, making sure that we are the future, because we really are the future of this country. And we thank you for that conversation, to both to Janet and David. And we're going to move on for an exciting announcement from Joe Garcia, who's the Executive Director of the Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund. Let's see, Joe, are you there? Because I know
I am here.
There's
Hey,
Joe.
thank you.
Joe Garcia.
Thank you, Raul. Yeah, we launched Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund because we wanted to become more of an advocacy nonprofit as well. But we had to create another organization to do that so we could become part of the election process and a part of having elect the better candidates for office and pushing for public policy using our leverage, organizing and activating the community, becoming more of an advocate, which was our roots. But we had to do that through a separate organization, and that's what we did. And we joined forces with Unidos U.S. Action Fund as well. And we thought, what can we do to be strong on this? And we decided, you know what? We need to do a get out the vote. We need to get out the vote because every election, every presidential election since 1996, more eligible Latinos did not vote than eligible Latinos did vote. And we're hoping to change that this presidential election. So we came up with a theme, and the theme is, it's our time. And it is our time, and that plays on so many different levels. It's our time to show up at the ballot box and show what a political force we can be. It's our time to take a greater leadership role in deciding the future of all people, including all states and our nation. It's our time to show what an economic driver, what an economic force we truly are in workforce. It's our time to demand and expect changes in education, affordable housing, health and human services, small businesses. It's our time to claim our proper place in our states and in this nation. So it's our time, plays off of that, but obviously it all begins at the ballot box. So that's what we're pushing out. We're launching a brand new campaign that's dealing with get out the vote, digital ads. There's going to be all over social media. There's going to be also some video with that, some events, organization. The whole idea is let's energize the Latino power because it is there. The numbers are there now. This year, we have a record 32 million Latinos who are eligible to vote. I mean, that's amazing. And you think about that, that is the largest non-white voting bloc, if you will, that there is for the first time. So we just need to turn those numbers into votes. And that's what we're all about right now, is to get out the vote. We're excited about the campaign. You're going to be seeing it. You're going to be hearing it in the days and weeks to come. But very happy to partner with Unidos U.S. Action Fund on this. And we're very excited about the campaign. And we're going to make it happen. We're going to change the direction. We have that power.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Garcia, amazing news. And of course, the other part of it is that the organizations that lead this, it's an opportunity for us to really be at the forefront in terms of bringing policy issues, and policy becomes law. So that is very, very important. Some of the other impact that Chicanos por la Causa is having, and part of this action items and mobilization of our own people comes out of the Nevada part of our country, and we got Rupert Ruiz. Rupert, ¿dónde estás? He's the president of Chicanos por la Causa Nevada out in Las Vegas. Rupert, are you there?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I can see you, and you're looking good, man. What's going on? Talk to us. How things going?
It's good to be here. Thank you very much. I want to thank David, Janet, as well as Joe, right? But this is what we have, right? Nevada is a very powerful state. 30% of our population is Latino. Almost 20% of eligible voters in Nevada are Latino. We can make a difference. And I couldn't agree with you more. And we have to get the Latinos to get out and vote, because the more Latinos that vote, the more Latinos that vote, the more we can drive our own agenda, the more we can have elected officials that are Latino. And that is important to us, right? As we continue, I think, to move forward, one of the things that I want to say, right, is this year in Nevada, every registered voter will be receiving a mail-in ballot, right? So we need to be very cognizant of that. If they're not comfortable with that, they'd rather vote in person. They need to know that early voting is from October 17th through October the 30th, right? The registration, I think it's unlike Arizona. I believe that we are, I want to take a look at this real quick. I believe that we have the ability, Raul, to go ahead and register online up until the 29th of October. And that's powerful.
Wow,
right?
that's a lot.
My message if I could conclude what I'm saying, is my message to the Latinx community is to be present. Vote and make your voice heard. Be present. Don't vote alone. Take somebody with you, right? Don't sit this one out. Be present. Be present in this election. Your exercise, your duty to serve, show voting and the power of our community, Raul. That's what we have to do.
Thank you, Rupert. Encouraging words. Again, we are kind of cheerleaders, I was saying earlier, because we're so excited about the possibilities. And remember, that's how things begin. When you see that possibility, when you take that space and you begin to mobilize our communities, we've always been very hardworking. We've always been inventors, and we've been, working in so many different industries. We're a very diverse group. So the importance of it is how do we activate, particularly our vote, utilizing our vote, particularly in this election. And we're going to go a la Tierra del Encanto, all the way to Nuevo Mexico, New Mexico, where the president of Chicanos por la Causa, New Mexico, is at. I believe he may be in Albuquerque. I think he's in Albuquerque. Roger Gonzalez. Roger, cuéntanos un poquito de lo que está pasando por allá en Nuevo Mexico. What's going on? Are you there?
Buenos dias, Lo de Dios. Welcome, and thank you for inviting me from the great land of enchantment. I'm from the oldest capital here in the United States, Santa Fe. As you can see, we believe in the culture of empowerment, the Chicanos por la Causa. And when we mean empowerment, we talk about engaging in the process. We don't just need for you to register to vote. We need for you to be part of the process. Our families are struggling. Our communities are hurting. And we need to do this not for ourselves, but for our abuelas and our hitos and hitas who are having a hard time under this pandemic. And we need to advocate for those resources. And who better than us who understand the struggles of what's happening. So I think it's really important to understand the need to engage. I'm proud to report out of New Mexico, there's 302,000 applications for absentee ballots right now that will be going out. We have to make sure that they don't get lost in the process, that we help people engage in the voting process as we move forward. And it's really important for our communities. In land of enchantment, we have a bunch of rural pockets that are hurting for broadband, hurting for resources, water projects, and others. We have to make sure that we are the voice. My grandfather used to say, "Lo que no llora no mama." It's our job to kick and scream and tell people that we need elected leaders who are going to represent us. Not every 2 or 4 years for the parades, but every single day as they're engaging in conversations and policy negotiations. What is the best for the Latino community? And we need to elect leaders. And I hope that New Mexico will send the next Latino senator to that chamber by electing Ben Ray Lujan. And so it's important that we look for partners and advocates who have been with us all the time, not just when it's election season.
And we have so many opportunities, and we hope the same, excuse me, for all the people in New Mexico, because, also the southern part and the northern part are coming together to get all of the Latino vote as a force in the beautiful state, La Tierra del Encanto. Thank you, Rupert, and thank you, Roger, for joining us today. Now let's go to kind of our main event, a panel of diverse voices within the Latino community para discutir con nosotros las razones del por qué hay que votar. Discussing why they're voting, why the election matters so much to them. And with us today is Arizona State Senator Tony Navarrete, a young senator from our state, very involved, very charismatic, and very committed to our community. Also a small business owner and local artist, Kathy Murillo, and DACA recipient and owner of the Machine Consulting, Tony Baldovino, and first-time presidential election voter, Marisela Flores. Thank you all so much for taking time to be here with us today. Let's start with Senator Tony Navarrete. Tony, bienvenido. You're an elected official. You know personally how important local elections are and the power of the Latino voice at the state capitol. but there's also a lot of work to be done to make sure Latinos are adequately represented in the decision-making process. How have you seen Latino advocacy show up at the Capitol? And where do we go? What pockets do we get into to grow and to get everyone to participate? Tony?
Well, thank you, Mr. Aguirre. It's so good to see you. And of course, even just to be on a program with, our very beloved Janet Murguia, and of course, leader of CPLC, David Adame, and of course, our Arizona champion, Joe Garcia, who is not only championing, the census, but is always trying to talk about the power of our vote. When it comes to seeing Latino advocacy show up at the state capitol, we've seen different ways of advocacy show up at the Arizona Capitol, from the Chicano movement to most recently in 2010, when a group of Spanish-speaking women held a vigil outside of the state capitol in response to Republican bill SB 1070, the Show Me Your Papers law. And prior to SB 1070 were years of attacks by extremists holding public office, yet our community did not let up. And what followed was an explosion of young and not so young leaders that were powered by anger and a belief for a better Arizona. So now these leaders that we talked about over the last decade are now running organizations. They're showing up at the Capitol and working collaboratively with groups like Unidos US to demand even change from Capitol Hill. So not only did we go from our Capitol, but now we're at the US Capitol, making sure that we are moving forward change. But of course, there is always room to grow for our community and for our movement. And we have to continue to advocate for the families, to be treated with dignity and respect. And that starts with building relationships with one another, building inroads in communities that have too long been marginalized. And, we have to build a shared commitment of working together so that we can really provide for the greater good of our country, for the greater good of Arizona. But we're getting better at this every single year. And while we're in this process, we are making our voices heard. One of the things that you heard Mr. Garcia mention is that across the country, there are now over 32 million Latinos eligible to vote. And not only are they voting, but even those that are not eligible to vote are still showing up at the Capitol, advocating on behalf of their children, advocating on behalf of their community. So this is a bigger movement than just, folks that are able to vote. This is a movement about how do we protect the values of the United States of America. And, you're seeing that at the capitals and you're seeing that across the country. But again, there's always room to grow, but I'm really excited by the progress that our community has made to move our state forward.
And what an inheritance in many ways of all the activism that's been taking place. You command, I think, a great presence with young people. And I asked that question from David Adame and Janet Munguia a little while ago in terms of the disenfranchisement of young people. Yet, I know that we are getting so many people who cannot even vote, are not, maybe they're legal residents, but not U.S. citizens, and they're becoming citizens. The system has made it a little more difficult now, but they're continuing to move forward. How do you see that particular contingent, Tony, moving and making that action? Because when you use the Chicano movement as the platform, I think a lot of what's been happening since 1969, when Cesar Chavez, went on strike and did the March of the Latino, that's what he was talking about. Empowerment of language, bilingualism, being full citizen of the United States. And tell me what you see out there across the state.
So what I see is, honestly, like I mentioned before, these young folks that were once upon a time were just filled with anger. And trust me, I was such an angry young person as well. When I would see Sheriff Arpaio and his posse come into our communities as a kid, it would infuriate me because it wasn't just, one sheriff's car. It was literally military tanks, command stations, intimidating our families. And that wasn't just, unfortunately, it wasn't unique just to our community. It was something that was taking place all across Maricopa County. And what ended up happening is that a lot of these young folks, who were U.S. citizens, started to really get angry and use that anger in a way that was going to create an Arizona that was going to treat their families with dignity and respect. And that started with making sure that we were building up the political power by registering voters to vote. I come from an organization called, Promise Arizona, which is an affiliate of Unidos US, and they've registered over 50,000 new Arizona voters across the state. And not only that, but they're also part of One Arizona Table that has over the last decade have registered hundreds of thousands of new folks and trained an additional thousands of young leaders to understand this process and get ready to not just advocate at the state capitol, but run for public office, which is why I ran in 2016. And now I sit here as a state senator, and we're seeing more individuals getting into elected office, whether it's at the school board, city council, legislature, statewide, and we're going to continue to grow. And again, this is really about bringing about change so that we can truly impact the lives of our families and make sure that future generations don't have to deal with the vicious attacks that Republicans have done to the Latino community, especially our undocumented community in the state of Arizona.
And certainly, I think the movement is there. We've elected in Arizona many firsts. For example, Regina Romero, the mayor of Tucson, made history after 100 years of not having a Latino, Chicano, Hispano leader of the city. Lane Santa Cruz, a city councilwoman, young woman that came out of the ranks of the Mexican American Studies programs and promoting so many educational opportunities. Tony, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Senator Tony Navarrete, muchas gracias. Y adelante, como decía mi tata, adelante con la cruz.
Adelante.
Échale
Gracias.
ganas. Tenemos ahora a nuestro siguiente panelista. She is a crafty chica, Kathy Cano Murillo, and she's an owner of a business, small business, and we all have to support small businesses, especially right now. She's also an artist, and so much more. Thanks for being here, Kathy. We've seen the devastating effects that the global pandemic has done in our community, especially a small business owner. I'm a small business owner, and I can see the impact that it's having in our community. But I'd love to hear your perspective. How do you see the Latino and Chicano small business community in Arizona? What are we doing right? How are we mobilizing? And how will we recover from these economic setbacks? Welcome, Kathy. There you are.
Hi, thank you for having me.
For sure.
I think the one
Thank you for
thing
being
that
here.
Really, really impressed me about our community during this time is the way that we're so resilient. I have seen so many small business owners push themselves to evolve their business, especially in the artist community, influencer content creation. A lot of people learned how to take their businesses online. They learned how to shift from making earrings to making masks. I mean, when the pandemic first started, people were like, how do I make a mask? And use a bed sheet. Where's the pattern? 2 weeks later, they're like, okay, I'm making 200 masks for my
Use
local
a bottle
hospital.
of a
2
Coke
weeks
bottle,
later,
right? Or a
they had
Pepsi,
an
whatever.
online store. So I think it's amazing the way that, yes, we are stressed. We're pushing through this, but we have an action plan. We have a sense of hope, and we follow through with it. And I especially love, especially on social media, a lot of people supporting businesses and showing like, oh, look, they're open for one day, or, oh, look at this business, look what they're doing. Just a lot of community using social media to get the word out and to support each other. And if we could take that energy and direct it towards everyone going to vote, mailing in their ballots, not only mailing in their ballots, but also following up to make sure their ballot was recorded. Did you know you could do that? Like once you mail it in, you can go online and make sure that they received your ballot. Do it early, so in case if it's not recorded, you can follow up to see what the problem was. But, just taking that action, putting it into play. And I think that, as we come together and we get through this, people are going to end up having a lot more skills than they did before the pandemic, strictly because of their passion for their business to continue it. Some people decided maybe to change their business and find a different direction. It really forced us to take a look at what we're doing and how dedicated we are to it, if it's really what we want to do. So I've been really impressed with the support out there and the resiliency and just the innovation that I've seen with small business owners taking time to revamp their business before they reopen again, or just staying on online to connect with people, to let them know how much they appreciate their business and support. So I think we can definitely pull through this if we stay together, stay positive, and take action and follow through, and most of all, show up.
Absolutely. And, we are very creative. And I think they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? So there's a lot of that. And I think small business do a lot of that. And, a Mexican invented color TV. So come on, guys. We can do anything. And Google it if you don't believe me. But it's very, very important. How do you see Latinas in particular? Women-owned business have been growing exponentially in Arizona. What do you hear out there? And how do we mobilize them to vote, to get out there, and to understand that economic development and good policy go together?
Well, we have several organizations here about Power Latinas, the Mujeron movement, Latinas Who Brunch. These are all women, Latinas coming together with their business ideas, sharing what works, what doesn't work. We are mobilizing, we are taking action. And I think that, again, following, going on social media, finding out when there's these different webinars and conferences online that we can go to get this information, that will make it easier. But it makes me feel good to attend these events virtually and see the action that is being made, and people sharing their resources, sharing an action list of what it will take to level up their business. Because I noticed a lot of Latinas here in our community, it's not just about surviving, they are in the mindset to thrive. And that is so good to have that abundance mindset. When you're faced with a challenge, how do you push through it? How do you evolve your business with it? That is already happening right now. And the more people who can connect with that and become involved, the better. So just know that we do have that going on right now already. And I'm just so proud of our Latina community here for, just putting these masterminds together virtually and even in smaller groups as well. And of course, everyone is translating that into showing up at the polls to vote so that we can level up even more.
Absolutely. Network, baby. That's what they say, right? You got to network, and when you network, you got to, excite people about getting out there and voting. Thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate it, and we wish you luck in your business. Keep it up. Keep it going. I think it's, the small business is really the backbone of the United States. We provide a lot of, more employment than anyone else. So that's very important. So if you're a small business owner, please tell your workers they need to get out there, your employees, they need to get out there and vote. Thank you, Kathy, and good luck to you. Échale ganas, como dicen por ahí, y no te dejes. ¿Está bueno?
Yes.
Our next guest is Tony Valdovino. Tony owns a consulting firm, and he's a DACA recipient. So not only are politics and a business for him, but he's also, makes it extremely personal. Así que queremos darle la bienvenida a Tony porque hay muchos latinos en la comunidad que estamos de veras comprometidos con la comunidad, movilizando a la comunidad, dando el tiempo a todos ellos. Les mandamos saludos esta mañana que estamos haciendo este programa especial para todos ustedes del voto latino. It's our time. And I think when you're civically engaged, it tells us, how we can encourage young people, young Latinos to make a difference in their communities and also get involved in elections. And Tony does a lot of that. Tony, ¿dónde estás? Buenos días, bienvenido.
Buenos dias. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Antonio Valdovino de la Mora. I was born in Colima, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States when I was 2. I grew up here in Phoenix just like every other student. When I was about 17, I tried to join the Marine Corps, which is when I found out I was undocumented. After that, my mother really wanted us to continue going to college. And that's where my journey in politics really started. There was a tuition hike here in Phoenix, which made out-of-state students, undocumented students, have to pay 300% more for their school, which meant that everybody else was paying $300. We were paying $900 because we could not prove that we were residents, even though we had lived here our entire life. And that propelled me into politics. I did 10 years now of organizing, 6 years as a business. I started Law Machine Consulting as a vision to continue mobilizing Latinos to vote. I had volunteered 10 years ago for a city council race that opened my eyes up to how many Latinos want to vote, but absolutely have no idea who to vote for and why. And so we realized that the sleeping giant for Latinos out here in Phoenix was education. And so being bilingual and recruiting fellow Latinos that were either citizens or non-citizens to push out there and educate our community and talk to them about the importance of voting. And here we are 10 years later, we've elected 4 mayors. We've elected 2 congressmen. Tony Navarrete is one of our state senators for a district that we work every single year. And the most important thing that I focus on turning 30 this year is continuing the organization. We employ more than 45 Latinos from the community, and we specifically focus on hiring students that are curious or are eager or are angry, and we give them the opportunity to do something about it, which is to go get a list of registered voters on your iPhone, knock on doors, and explain the importance of who's on the ballot and why to vote. And we've been dedicating ourselves for that for the last 6 years. I myself still cannot vote, but every single day when we launch volunteers out there and they're able to get votes, it allows our community to be represented appropriately. And we're very proud to have elected in 2014 the second youngest member of Congress, which is Congressman Ruben Gallego, which has been a very, very fierce advocate for Latinos against everything that's coming towards us from Washington.
So, Tony, you can't not vote yet, right? How does that make you feel? Is it a little frustrating when you talk to other people that can vote and are not doing it? How does that make you feel? And send them a message. Tell them why. I mean, you would love to vote and you can't.
Not feeling the ability to raise my voice. I remember when I couldn't join the Marines. That really hurt. I didn't understand at that time. I was still 17, and by the time I was 20, I joined my first city council race, and that really opened my eyes up to understanding that even if I couldn't vote myself, every conversation that we were having at the doors was truly empowering, because I remember this señora, she's like, oh, mijo, déjame agarrar el sobre, and she went and she picked it up and it was already in the recycling bin. And I just remember that moment. I'm like, wow, if I knocked on this door of this Latina, she definitely wanted to get our PIO out, had no idea she could vote and that her sons can vote. And for me, that's been the empowerment of not being able to vote myself, is that we've created an organization that now is partnered with ACLU, Vote Tripoli, the Latino Victory Fund, and we've been able to educate our community about the importance of them participating in the vote. And so even if I can't vote myself, every single day when we launch out 15 students to go knock in Latino neighborhoods, and they come back with story after story after story of somebody wanting to vote this year, it is a very empowering feeling. I think that for us as Latinos, we have a lot of conversations about empowering the Latino vote and why it's important to vote. But the reality is that, for at least in my perspective, is that for the last 10 years, if you want Latinos to vote, you got to go get them to vote. And we cannot just say that. We can't just put commercials and radios and endless organizations. The real work has been, at least for us in Phoenix, to go and knock on those doors, talk to the parents, talk to the kids about who's on the ballot and the dangers of not participating. And that's what we've been able to do here in Arizona. And we just got selected as a battleground state. And
absolutely.
But ultimately, there's tremendous amount of work to do.
Thank you, Tony. Impacting young people and in our community is limitless. Thank you so much for being here with us and continue to do great work, and for sharing, all the things that you've been doing to engage our voters. And Tony is correct. That's why we need to get out there. We need to be in the trenches. We need to knock on doors. And we're knocking on your door this morning saying it is our time. Let's get out there and vote. You can still register to vote in Arizona, so do it today. Our last panelist is Marisela Flores. She's participating in her very first presidential election. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is the first time she's going to be able to vote. Let's give her a big round of applause. Yeah, Marisela, all of you out there, applaud for her. I think it's so important. And I want to ask her que nos comente un poquito, que nos diga cómo se siente votar por primera vez. Ella es de Guaymas, Sonora. Para toda la gente de Sonora, les mandamos un saludo. Así que, how does it feel to be voting in your first presidential election, Marisela? Cuéntanos. ¿Dónde está Marisela? Llamando a Marisela desde Guaymas. Vamos a ver si la entra en nuestra entrevista. A veces, ya saben, cuando estamos trabajando con Zoom es un poco difícil, pero a ustedes que nos acaban de sintonizar, tenemos un programa muy especial con Chicanos por la Causa y además también con Unidos US, que ha estado trabajando juntos por tantos años en la movilización, no solamente del voto, pero el empoderamiento de vivienda, el empoderamiento político, all these different issues that they've been doing for so many years, I think continue to be at the forefront of having to make sure that our community continues to thrive. In many ways, Janet and David, you know, we are a force. We are, 32 million people that can vote, 60-some million people in the United States. If we were a country, we will be the 15 or 16 economy in the world. We have a purchasing power of like $1 trillion. So tell us, where do we go from here? The vote is super important. This is what we're doing this morning.
Well, yes, we've seen that, as you noted, Raul, and as we saw in all of these wonderful spokespeople, these leaders, these folks who are making incredible contributions just now. We also have seen that just like the Latino population, Hispanic population has grown in Arizona, so has our buying power and our political power. Seeing Senator Navarrete there, Tony, you see the story and the arc of power growing in Arizona. And for us, that's so important. Even in 2010, when we saw the Show Me Your Papers law, SB 1070, we saw that anger channeled into a constructive effort to build our political power, to mobilize our Latino and Latina voters, and to grow the number of voters in Arizona. That has paid off. And now we're seeing the opportunity for us to use that power in ways that can even make our lives for our families and our communities even better. Because again, these candidates are on the ballot, from president to Senate to members of Congress to local elected officials. But what they stand for is on the ballot. And we need to make sure they understand the experiences our community is facing right now, they understand our contributions, and that they understand that we want leaders who will bring us together, who will fight for health, for our families, and for good jobs, and that respect and see diversity as a strength in this state and in our country. We have the ability to elect those leaders when we vote on election day. The stakes have never been higher. It's so important for us to let Arizona tell the story of empowerment of our Latino community. It is the single focused swing state that people will be watching, and Latinos are going to be able to determine what happens in Arizona.
So forget purple. Right? Is that what you're saying? I think that's what people are talking about. And I'm gonna send a little message to Yuma, Arizona, where I think when Janet, when you talk about it's just not voting for president. It's voting locally, where you have all the impact. The school boards are important, the state legislatures, their senators and representatives. So to Yuma, Arizona, we send a big hello. No se les olvide salir a votar. Estamos en un programa muy especial con todos ustedes y ya tenemos a Marisela aquí con nosotros. Marisela, bienvenida. We can hear you now, and my question was, how does it feel to be voting in your first presidential election, votando por primera vez?
Well, let me tell you that although I spent years living in this country and able to vote, uh, over time, I became aware how important it was to vote. Voting select a representative who cares to improve our communities on areas such as education, um, economic, immigration, and health, among others, pretty good. So, fortunately, in January 2018, I attained one of my greatest achievements, becoming United States citizen. As quickly as 3 days after the ceremony of naturalization, I was already registering to vote. I was visibly happy. Chicanos por la Causa even organized a nice celebration among co-workers. I am so grateful for all the support of my organization. Suffice to say that November in 2018, I used my right to vote for the first time. I vividly remember how unprepared I was. For the first experience, I was so nervous. I arrived to the polling center very unsure what to do.
Se te olvidó lo que querías, por quién querías votar. Estabas tan nerviosa que se te olvidó. Estabas tan nerviosa que se te olvidó por qué querías votar.
The volunteers were helpful and guided me through the process. I now know how simple voting is. So, but to be honest, I still prefer mail-in ballot. I like to think that this time I am more prepared as well as excited for my very first presidential election on November 3rd. I know that I am joining thousands and thousands of immigrants like me who will exercise their right to vote, knowing that with our participation will impact the life in our communities. So I urge Latinos and Latinos to exercise your right to vote and do your part. So together we can help to have a better government that allows to live in harmony. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisela. Great story. Imagínense, amigos, que por primera vez va a estar votando Marisela en una elección nacional. I mean, and I love that excitement that she said, you know, as soon as I became a naturalized citizen, immediately I registered to vote. And that's exactly what we want everyone to do. Inmediatamente, en cuanto pasan la prueba de ciudadanía, las 100 preguntas horribles a veces, pero importantes, pero cuando pasa entonces tiene que registrarse para votar. ¿A quién tenemos ahí que le podemos preguntar? Who, you know, maybe let's say, who do we have? Tony Navarrete is still with us, and tell us if someone is on the fence about whether or not their vote matters, what can you tell them? Tony, are you there still? With us?
I am here.
All right.
I hope you can hear me.
I continue to be concerned about that, disenfranchisement. You did such a good job. I wanted you to remind everyone, why is it important?
Absolutely. So first, I just want to make sure that folks know that elections are more than just the presidential ballot. You know, there are more than the federal candidates that are running. We have folks running for school board, for city council, for mayor, for statewide offices that regulate our utilities. So, you know, I'll share a small story about my first election when I first ran for the legislature. You know, it was my first time running for public office, and our team had registered nearly 200 voters. And every day our team hustled to connect with families in our community. And on Tuesday night of the primary election, we actually came in 3rd place. But by the weekend, once all of the ballots were counted, our campaign managed to secure the top spot with just 32 votes. And this was a result of our community working to connect with voters, that voters that thought that their vote didn't count. And I want to remind you all that every single year across the country, and especially here in Arizona, there are races that are won by very narrow margins. And one of those races was my race. So if you feel like you're on the fence, know that there are other candidates that are running, and you have to make sure that we that we make our voice heard, and we have to do it through the ballot box. There are too many people, there are too many lives at stake. There's too many funding priorities that have to be addressed, and it's not going to happen if you don't vote. So please get off the fence. I've been working with folks, for decades and organizing. And again, every vote really does count, and there's going to be elections that are going to make, that your vote is going to make the difference.
It sure does. Every vote counts. Thank you, Senator Navarrete. Tony, gracias por todo lo que haces. And we want to remind everyone of our 51st anniversary. Is that right? Of Chicanos por la Causa, making this happen. And then we'd like to also make sure that we bring back Janet and David for some closing thoughts. If you would, Janet and David. This has been a great program with great guests talking about the importance of the vote, but also talking about our own initiative, our own mobilization, and also how we are going to be contributing even more to the future of this country, because really, Latinos, since the very inception of this country, we have been building our country to be the best, to be great, to do great things. So wrap us up and tell us some departing comments about what we saw and heard today.
Well, just some inspiring and compelling comments from incredible leaders and contributors to this great state, to the country. Again, and emblematic of what our community does every day. So it's been wonderful for Unidos US Action Fund to be here in solidarity with CPLC and Chicanos por la Causa, to stand in partnership with David Adame and all of you. For us, we know that in unity there is strength, and in strength there is power. Unidos podemos avanzar nuestra causa, nuestra comunidad, y lo mejor para nuestras familias. It's so important for us to be together, united in the interests of our community and for our country. Please vote. Make a plan to vote. You can still register to October 23rd, but vote and be committed. Make a promise. Make a plan.
Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate you joining us. This is an important time, and it's our time. It's nuestra hora. And I'm calling it El Nuevo Movimiento. It's 50 years from when we started the Chicano movement back in the late 60s, but we need to push back on these elections, make sure we participate. The clear example with Senator Tony Navarrete on the phone, when we were battling to try to make sure that during this pandemic, that resources for COVID-19 testing, for PPP loans, for support to pay the rent or the mortgage or access to food, because we had people like Tony and others in the Latino Hispanic caucus at the state legislature, is why we were able to get the attention and the resources we needed to help our community. But that's just a start. We need to do more than that. There's a good chance that we can have the first Speaker of the House be Latino or Latina in Arizona. These are all important milestones from, it was talked about earlier, having the first mayor of Tucson, a Latina, Regina Romero. We need more of that. We're ready to do it, and it's important for our future. And we're going to continue to invest. Chicanos por la Causa and Chicanos por la Causa's Action Fund are continuing to invest. I invite you to join us this Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, where we're having our anniversary event. It's virtual. We have some great guests that are also going to be pushing for getting out the vote, from Cheech and Chong to Dolores Huerta and other celebrities. Tower of Power, my favorite band, doing a special song to support and get the momentum going. Let's do this together, and there ain't no stopping us. Sí se puede, and thank you very much, and thank you again, Janet, for joining us here. Together, logramos más. Thank you.
You had me over at Tower of Power, Cheech and Chong. I mean, amazing. And I think both organizations Unidos US and Chicanos por la Causa have demonstrated this long history of advocacy and commitment to raza issues, right? Because I think it's part of the movement that never dies. Somebody asked me one day, Raul, what is la causa? And I said, is that struggle that we have to do every day to make sure that our communities, and not just our community, I think all communities in need, communities who are underserved, communities who are under siege, communities who are the victims of bad policy, that we help and we make sure that we empower them. And we heard some great stories, some great opportunities now to continue to register to vote. Make sure that you get out and you need to be heard, you need to be counted. And I want to intercede again and say the census still going on. A court also allowed it to go all the way till October 31st, so you have the time it takes 5 minutes to be counted, but your vote is one of the most important pledges that you can make for this the democracy. So please sign up to vote by mail on servicearizona.com. servicearizona.com. Vote at in-person early voting locations starting tomorrow. The ballots are already out this weekend. Sit around your table with your tías, your abuelos, tus hijas, tus hijos, and sign up for a phone bag to participate. Make your voice heard. It's our time. Porque una comunidad informada es una comunidad fuerte. It is our time, nuestro tiempo, nuestra oportunidad. Salgan a votar, háganse contar, and we will be prospering together and doing great things across this country. Thank you so very much. I appreciate Janet Munguia, David Adame, and all our guests. Yo soy Raúl Aguirre. Que la pasen muy bien. Ahora vamos con Gabo de Fayuca. Se lo había prometido. No le puedo fallar. Pásenla bien.
Tight grip the things we hold dear. It's all smoke and mirrors and vision can be clear. I'm screaming, no way, no, we won't buy into what they sold. No way, no, we won't believe the stories they told. You see, the system is a system that's intended to keep constructing lies and corruption while the righteous go weak. They have our lives in their pockets and their hands around our feet to keep us right. Really want us by the rebels go meek, but I'm living. What a wonderful time to be alive. When positives divide, we see through the lies and look good. Tight grip, the things we hold dear. No more smoke or fear. The vision can be clear and screaming. No way.